Welcome to our webinar about dealer diagnostic tool registration by brand. In this, we'll take you through some of the process. We'll take you through some of the prerequisites in Europe of what you're going to need and your business is going to need to register you to use dealer diagnostic tools. So we're just going to quickly go through what we're about. We start and put a quick introduction to ourselves. So we're Maverick Diagnostics. We provide solutions to the independent aftermarket, provide technical support, original dealer diagnostic tool packages, and aftermarket diagnostic tools. We support all major European brands. We help the independent markets through the vehicle registration processes. We've been around for a long time, since 1999. We've gone through every evolution pretty much of diagnostic tools. We work with suppliers and key accounts worldwide to technically support them and their customers. And our motto is we want to secure a profitable future for the automotive aftermarket. So just whizzing through, I'm Andy Brooke. I've been in the aftermarket since, well, man and boy, really. Over the last 25 years, I've worked in my own workshops with diagnostic tech. I sold and supported OEM diagnostic tools and worked with aftermarket tool development and manufacturers. I've carried out diagnostic training, and I work advising the IAAF and the UKA AFCAR to build a case and fight for the UK aftermarket in things like block exemption. We'll talk about that a bit later. It's quite important that everybody understands what that is. We'll get to that in a bit. Now, introduction to my colleague.
Hi, I'm Dave Jones and I'm the Technical Director. So I've worked in all areas of the diagnostic world in sales and technical sales and support. So I've sold and supported and I've helped develop some of major hardware and software over the years. I started in my early days in LS UK with the old Laser 2000 and the breakout box, progressing from there into working in distribution with Eurocar parts. It started obviously in the parts sales and the tech sales team in there. Moved very swiftly on then to the IFA and looked after the garage equipment program for some of the branches of the IFA. And then I was heavily involved with the development of the pass-through program when it moved from the USA into the UK. So I was a very early adopter of pass-through in the UK. And then recently, I worked as the sales manager for a company called Bartek Auto ID, who were specialist projects in tire pressure monitoring systems. So really been around really in the diagnostics in sales and technical support for over 20 years. And that's me.
So this podcast is not about how to get the best out of dealer diagnostic tools. We strongly recommend you watch one of the previous episodes, which is how to earn a living from vehicle diagnostics now and in the future. That will give you a complete understanding of how the diagnostic tools and dealer tools work and how they fit into your workshop's future. So that's available online. So if you want to watch it on YouTube, you can probably click on the link. So that was a bit of that. So advanced technology, I mean, most people already know this, but I quite like this slide. Love it, I hate it, it's here to stay. So Dave, tell us about modern vehicles.
So modern vehicle, basically it's made up a collection. It's just like laptops now on wheels. So you've got, again, multiple computers all in line, all talking with each other. So again, need to be a bit of a technophobe really for this. So obviously a lot of the modern vehicles now have a lot of computers that are now driver assistance systems, electric vehicles, hybrid, and all that kind of technology now that's kind of been adapted into these modern vehicles, along with the dealers, obviously now, sorry, the manufacturers now that have started to make these systems more secure and adding secure gateway modules. So that adds another level and another complexity. So as an independent workshop, really, how on earth are you supposed to keep up with all of this? So simply put, basically, there is no magic bullet. There is no one tool does everything now. In fact, it's quite simple. You've really, really got to readjust and view your diagnostics business for an opportunity for you to get most out of the complexity of these vehicles. So, yeah, so we can see here how it can be done.
So, yeah, please watch the previous one to have a bit more of an in-depth understanding about that. So next bit is we know workshops in 2022 are facing many challenges. We've got Brexit, we've got COVID still a little bit hanging around there. Chip shortages, one thing that's definitely hit us with getting components and VCIs and laptops and bits and pieces over the last 12 months. Rising energy costs, as we are doing this, obviously there's still a war in Ukraine. So, we're not even sure how high the energy costs are going to go at this point. Lack of decent technicians, that's one of the biggest cry-outs that we have at the moment. We've got guys who were previously the manager now working back in the workshop because they can't find a decent technician. Electric and hybrid vehicles, whole other subject really, this one, but we're doing quite a lot of work around this ourselves at the moment, quite a lot of looking into training, etc., getting the best return on investment for moving down that road. ADAS self-driving, a lot of you already know about this. A lot of you have already invested in ADAS kit as well. It's not going away, and with self-driving vehicles, it's even more there. Aftermarket tools no longer keep up. As I said, watch the other webinar that we did about the fact is that they won't keep up any longer because everything's going cloud-based. But have a look at that. I'm not going to go into this now. Which direction to go in generally, we get that a lot. What to invest in and when. Should they specialize in brands? Again, this is all covered in other bits of work that we've done. So we basically, at the moment in 2022, we're dealing with companies around Europe, around the world, and we see this. This is one way the workshop seems to look at it, which is, look, we're going to bury our head in the sands. We're going to carry on doing what we're doing. And the other one is we can make money out of this. We can invest in the future. So really, there's three types of workshop that we've identified, and many in between. Number one, this is when the technology arrives at my door, I'm not going to invest in these tools of training, fix EVs and hybrid. We're going to carry on fixing petrol and diesel cars, years old. When they run out, we'll just shut the doors. Get that a lot. Talked to quite a good friend of mine yesterday, who runs a very successful garage, and he basically told me this. And my point to him was, actually, if you want to make your business more saleable, you probably want to look at doing a little bit of investment, at least in EV and hybrid, and get some staff trained. Type 2, yeah, we want to invest. We want to specialize. We want to make a ton of cash now and in the future, but we don't really know what to do. We don't know what to invest in. Do we need to specialize, etc., etc.? And that's we talk to people a lot every day about this very, very subject. So that's one thing we're becoming pretty expert on. And then we've got what we know is also known as the top 10%, absolutely already on it, planning for the future, may already be specializing but need further tooling, ongoing support and training, see the value investment, already making good money. So, that is probably 10% of the workshop set that are there. But if you're watching this, you're more likely to be in the types 2 and 3 categories already. Right, so I'm going to let Dave have a chat about this one now.
Yeah, so, okay, we'll start by taking a look at the basic rules of vehicle manufacturers' registrations. So again, these do not apply to all manufacturers, although most of them are adopting the same approaches. So later we'll go into the specifics of registering with 9 of the most popular vehicle manufacturers, all right? So in some cases, you may need to change your business plan slightly. All businesses will need to put at least a small amount of effort into the registration process. The more effort you put into the registration process, in our experience, we find the quicker the resolution back from the manufacturers. So really, time well spent in reading and understanding those applications and getting those applications in early and putting that supporting evidence and documentation with the application. But again, we're here and we can assist with all of those questions that you may have, anything you're not sure of and anything you're not sure of the terminology. Because some manufacturers, they're trying to say the same thing, but they just use different words to put it in. So the main crucial thing, I think, really is being VAT registered. I think it's fair to say that you'll no longer be able to register with certain manufacturers if you're not VAT registered. It's already really difficult to register any manufacturers without a VAT status.
Next one.
Second most important really is being a limited company status. Ideally, you really should be a limited company. However, we have had certain instances where a letter from an accountant is sometimes acceptable as far as the OEMs are concerned. So it's not impossible, if you're not a limited company. However, it just makes the registration process a little bit harder, and again, a little bit more time consuming, and again, may need to support with additional documentation from an accountant.
We'll go through that in detail by manufacturer, actually, because it's definitely you just can't get any registration without being limited. So next one.
Again, the use of manufacturers' logos on websites and building signs. This is really, really, a lot of workshops fall foul into this, don't really appreciate that actually the use of the manufacturers' logos. The OEMs really frown upon this. You're not an authorized repairer. You're not associated or affiliated with the OEMs. Therefore, you're not allowed to use OEM manufacturers' logos on websites or buildings or social media channels, etc. So again, vehicle manufacturers, they will reject if they can find evidence that they're using logos.
And even worse, Dave, we've had a couple of customers who've actually been sued.
Yeah,
you have to be very careful on that one.
Well, that's it. Their T's and C's, they will fine quite heavily if they decide to pursue that.
Well, we had a local garage that decided to call him, I'm not going to name it, but something BMW. And I know they took him to task massively and won and sued him successfully. So you've got to be very careful on what you call your business as well, actually, with some of these manufacturers. So this is a new one, really, which is emissions and performance. This is due to Dieselgate, really, isn't it, Dave?
Yeah, Dieselgate, and not only that as well, but again, the OEMs can also offer performance tuning enhancements within their network already. So they already have approved working partnerships in the main. So again, they don't look at it lightly with third-party aftermarket providers of performance tuning. And again, if you can. What the stance they take on this is, if you can actually remap an ECU and modify an ECU after they've spent billions and billions of pounds developing their software, then really you're not the type of customer that they're looking for.
Interestingly, we've been talking to businesses that are involved in this side of the world, and we've been talking to them recently, and been finding out more and more that there are going to be legislation put in against this, particularly with MOTs. They're looking for tools to check whether cars have been remapped. Warranty companies are rejecting claims if a car's been remapped and stuff like that. And the technology is all there to do this now. So it is going to be a huge thing in the future, to be fair, So do you want to take this one?
Yeah, sure. So it's really important about getting the correct SIC number. So that your registration number that you've registered your business with, your code that you've registered down for your business. So as you can see there, 45200 is the code that we're looking for, which states that you are repairing and maintaining motor vehicles. So this is the key code that they're looking for. It's not the only code that you will get approval on, because obviously they do look a little bit further into. Yeah, sorry, it's not the only code that they're looking at. It's 45200. There are other codes that they will look at. Obviously, if you're repairing HGVs and you're doing things like you're a recovery company or you're leasing vehicles, they will also look at that. But again, what they'll need with that is additional documentation and documentary evidence to prove that you're actually repairing your own vehicles on site. So again, you're making it just that little bit more harder for yourself.
We had one of the largest hire companies in the UK who applied for a certain manufacturer, and they were refused. And these company actually wrote to the manufacturer and said, we spend, I think it was £4 million a year with you. And they still refused. They had to actually go back in and add the SIC number before they could deal with the manufacturer. So yeah, it's pretty important, this one. So again, I mean, if you've not all of these things above, it's something you're going to have to start to look at if you want to move forward with dealer diagnostic tools. So next bit we're going to talk about is security access. So I'll take this one. So basically, to compete with your local main dealer, you're going to need security access. This basically is what elevates you to the position where you can add keys, you can add brand new modules. And this is a separate application dependent on the manufacturer. As I say, we'll go through them bit by bit in a minute. This has to be separate for various reasons. It really depends on the manufacturer, and I'll explain why in a bit. This is another reason why business models need changing, as basic access won't be enough. So say, for example, there's a manufacturer which allows you to register basically, because we get a lot of people ringing us and say, hey, I've registered for Volkswagen. They haven't registered Volkswagen. They've registered for a portal. They haven't actually got full access to the tools or buying a subscription or security. It's like level 1 out of 10 that they've actually registered for. So don't be fooled by any of that. So you really do have to look at adding SAC numbers, becoming limited, blah, blah, blah. We can help you through all of that. We do it every day, to be fair. So geographical restrictions are an interesting one. It's very complicated, this one. Believe it or not, we have problems with the Channel Islands sometimes because apparently they're no longer in the UK, although the Channel Islands say they're in the UK, but it depends which manufacturer you speak to. So it's a pretty complicated process, security access. We have to sometimes write to the manufacturers and ask them whether it's approval. If it's Australia or it's the USA, a different system, which we're about to explain. Hopefully in 2023, we can resolve this situation by, I'll talk about this in a minute, CERMI or NASTA. It's not going to guarantee things to be any easier. You're still not going to get away with not being a limited company or VAT registered, unfortunately. They're going to be looking at you with scrutiny, but it'll make things easier. So let's just have a quick chat about security applications. So block exemption, current process. CERMI and NASTA. So I'll try to explain this best I can. First of all, you need to understand what block exemption is. Now, block exemption is basically a non-competitive law. A lot of people know basically what this is, so I'll break it down really. Provides competition in the automobile industry as vehicle owners have the opportunity to repair and service vehicles at alternative workshops to the manufacturers. So it means basically the aftermarket can service a brand new car as long as they do its specification, register the digital service booklet, and probably realistically these days, most of the time you're going to have to get through a security gateway module, et cetera, to do all of this. So yeah, it's kind of that. It's allowing you access to everything. Now, we adopted block exemption before Brexit. So we actually pulled it onto the books, I think, in 2019. But one of the things that we're doing as part of the IAAF and UK AFCAR is trying to get these technical requirements updated and implemented. And the government really have had other little things on their minds, such as obviously Brexit, COVID, and now a war to get on with. So we've still got to push for this. Otherwise, the UK aftermarket could be in a bit of trouble after 2023. So how do you currently apply to use dealer diagnostic tool security? Well, basically, it's controlled by each individual manufacturer, which we'll go through afterwards. It's guided by block exemption, but they flout the rules in different ways. That's the only way to put it nicely. They generally want it to be limited company with that number. Use no manufacturer's logos. We've run through this a minute ago, so we won't run through that bit again. So what's the process in the future? Well, CERMI is going to come in. Good news and bad news in 2023. But to get into CERMI, you're going to have to be all of those things. You're just going to have a very, very clean nose. And CERMI means that basically once you've got it as a passport, you're able to register with any of the manufacturers that are in the CERMI scheme. So this is how it works. This is an independent scheme, independently monitored by the Aftermarket Association. So they have a national accreditation body. They assess you basically, and then as an independent operator or an independent employee, you then have a kind of passport and a license to get on and use these. So it's done by a digital certificate to the manufacturers, and that's basically how it works. Now, we'll explain it when we get to PSA, that PSA's version of CERMI is not anybody else's version of CERMI, but it gets rather confusing. Next bit is we've basically got a National Automotive Security Task Force, which is the one currently used in the US. Now, we're not sure where this is going to go. We're pretty sure that Australia is going to pick this one up because Australia have basically had their equivalent to block exemption go through late in 2021. And we're going to be working with partners in Australia ourselves soon to look at how this is going to be implemented. Possibly other manufacturers are going to use it in Europe as well. So there's going to be a bit of a mix of the two, we think, at the moment. But we're not hedging our bets on either or, to be fair. CERMI is the one that's administered in Europe. NAFTAS is actually an American one. So here's the rub, really. So registered and you're all happy, and Dave's had some real experience of this, haven't you? So I'll hand you over to him about this one.
Yeah, we've had some real wonderful cases being sent to us, and some really frustrating cases being sent to us with no real explanation really from the manufacturers, other than a nice accompanying email that says, "Hey, you're found to have broken our manufacturer's T's and C's, yeah, and we're going to block your account." And in some instances, worst case, we may even fine you up to €25,000. So this certainly grabs your attention on the first look. And really what they're basically saying here is that, yes, they're adhering to the guidelines, but they're also adding their own T's and C's in, and it's very important to understand their own T's and C's. So in this instance, what they're referring to, as you can see, we've highlighted, this means that you must not resell, rent, or share your personal information, or your keys, or your logins, or your passwords. You're not allowed to do unauthorized third party, such as remote diagnosis, etc., etc. And they're monitoring this quite closely with IP addresses and various things. And this is not an isolated email. We've seen this email now sent to us on several occasions. So, you know, it's not something that just think, oh, it's only the odd one or two people that's received this. It can happen to anybody. You know, even the customers that have literally just been set up think they're doing everything by the book, and suddenly they've got somebody that comes in remotely, uses something they shouldn't, logged on the server, and before you know it, you're receiving an email. So really something to watch out for.
And I think this is going to get stricter, because if CERMI, for example, is controlled by the aftermarket, they're going to be looking for even more excuses to make it harder. So something to bear in mind. Don't be naughty, everybody. That's basically it. So we're going to do it per popular brand now. So what I've got to say about this is, my God, these are changed all the time. So don't take these as written in stone. This just gives you an overview in early 2022. So Mercedes have been the bane of our lives really for the last 18 months as far as registration processes go. They literally have changed 10 plus times. So as a company, we document everything, and one of our poor guys has to rewrite these documents every time they change something. And they put in a new process. And one of the reasons they put that new process in was because of all the crack copied software that had been going on. And yeah, it's very, very complicated, Mercedes, and we'll run through that in a minute. Changes are expected to all brands' registration process when we do this new accreditation. As we said before, it's more likely they're going to try and add some more complexity and sort of skate on the edge of block exemption again to make it harder. We do this every day. So for us, actually, we're saying it's hard. For us, it's quite easy because we have all this written down. But for everybody else, unfortunately, it's quite complex. So we're not going to go through every manufacturer, just to brief overview the most popular. So we're going to do 9 major brands in here, which is like Volkswagen, Audi, Fiat, Skoda, Bentley, Lamborghini is one brand, for example. Jaguar Landrover is the other brand, for example. So we're going to go through it that way to show you what they require. We're not going to give you every detail. I'll actually show you on the Mercedes slide every detail, and you'll see why we won't give you any detail. So this is BMW. So Dave, do you want to start us off with this one, mate?
Yeah, so BMW, obviously, if you're going to need to use their portal and gain access to their diagnostic tool for diagnostics coding and programming, VAT registration will definitely 100% be required. Okay, as well as a limited company, they will do all the background checks to make sure and to activate your account. There is no separate security application involved with BMW. So everything that you do on the initial application is included. Again, there's no separate identity check required, so no passports and no other documents required to be submitted with your application. Again, they won't come out and check your premises and go online and check your premises. And again, they're not too bothered about whether you're a mobile repairer or whether you're a workshop-based repairer. Again, emissions and tuning, again, is it a problem? Not yet, but again, this may change with the introduction of CERMI in 2023, as Andy's just explained to you. The good news from BMW, Mini and Rolls-Royce is the typical time to complete an application roughly is within 48 hours. So it's a nice, easy tool to get up and running with fairly quickly. There's no geographical restrictions, so you can apply for BMW throughout Europe. The USA site is a different site, but again, still open to the US market. Again, they are strict on logos, etc. Okay, and as Andy's alluded to, have fined local workshops previously for misuse of their logos.
I think we'll agree they're probably the most relaxed of the German manufacturers, aren't they?
Nice and easy to deal with.
And it's a good system. It is a bit clunky if you've never used it, but it's pretty good. It's pretty intuitive for a family BMW. Next one, Ford. Bloody hell. Again, Dave, you can take this one, mate. It's so complicated.
Thanks for that. This Ford is probably one of the most difficult and tricky that's evolved, certainly with over the last 12 months. So it's complex as far as currently there are 7 different types of software platform available for the Ford Motor Company vehicles. So we have IDS for independent workshops. We have ETIS IDS, which have been used in the dealerships. There's also FJDS for those customers wanting to use pass-through for IDS. There's FDRS, GFDRS, PTS, SBDO. So that's quite a lot of different abbreviations and different bits of software to try and get your head round. Okay.
Am I right in saying that some of these don't work in Europe? Some of these are US and some of these are other platforms around the world?
Some of them were designed for the European market, but they are managing to find their way over here into the UK. So they are opening up to UK independent workshops. Again, just to give that more level of access to the independent markets that haven't gone out and bought the genuine official tool, that want to again jump on board with pass-through. But again, our suggestion would be genuine dealer, 100% diagnostic tool to give you the full coverage that you would be expecting. Plus, on top of all those different 7 types of software, there's also different website portals. So up until recently, basically Ford ETIS was the main portal for us for use here in the UK and Europe. But fairly recently, Ford issued a statement out to all users with their intent to do away with Ford ETIS and migrate that over to the Ford Service Info portal. That Ford Service Info portal is also the same portal that they use in the US under the Ford Motorcraft banner. So again, you can see that they're trying to move and migrate to one uniform platform, but split it out for the countries across the world. So yeah, quite complex in that. And again, still a lot of things going to be happening with Ford Motor Company and a lot of things to keep an eye on. So again, something we really need to be aware of, what's happening, development, and where it's heading and where it's going. So again, VAT registration is required. Yes, if you're going to need to do that all-important security access to give you access to the modules such as remote keyless entry modules, instrument clusters, body control modules, even things like adding a new ABS module. You wouldn't think that an ABS module was part of an integrated security network, but it is. So, even for doing things like that, you're going to need that security level access. Again, limited company, again, if you're going to go for the security, yes, it's vitally important. There is a separate security application. It's done in several stages, mainly controlled through MSXI, which operate in the UK and Europe. And again, there is a technical hotline available in Colchester, which they will charge for, and they charge in currency of hotline minutes, which you buy through the web portals. So again, yeah, there is an identity check that's going to be required for the security, so you will need to provide evidence of passport or driving license, etc. And again, with regards to premises check, there's no real premises check. However, we have seen instances where they do ask for public liability insurance, up to £1 million. So again, you need to provide documentary evidence of public liability insurance. Again, trading as a mobile operator as well as a workshop, not an issue, not a problem. They don't really frown upon anybody who wants to be a mobile repairer. Again, emissions and tuning, a problem. So not that currently aware of, but again, with the introduction of CERMI, that will obviously introduce the restrictions that CERMI will bring. So that's likely that will take that effect on the emissions and tuning. Again, the typical time to complete an application, roughly, it's nice and easy to get up and running for standard functionality. What do I mean by that? Standard functionality means anything with the exception of security, as I've just mentioned. And for that additional security application, you could be talking up to 2 weeks. Again, filling out the form, understanding the form, and sending the right documents is really key and crucial to getting a quick response and a quick decision back. Are there any geographical restrictions on that? No. The security and software, again, are different dependent upon location. And again, not really seen any instances of customers that have been using the Ford logo. We've not really seen any instances and backlashes from that from customers that have been using them on websites and social media. So that's Ford, quite complex.
Right. So JLR, I'll take JLR to give Dave a rest for a minute. So VAT registration required, yes, absolutely, with JLR, because that's in the initial registration as you go in. Limited company status, yes, makes your life a hell of a lot easier because they want to check you, particularly when you go through security. Again, you need public liability insurance and a passport check required. Premises check, yes, they do that through the SIC number for security again. Mobile trading, yes, they do prefer you to have a workshop because they actually ask you for your address, and they actually call you from JLR to make sure you're not lying as well. You'll have a chat to a nice lady from JLR about all of this. They question you over the phone. Emissions and tuning, yes, this is definitely a problem. We've come across this quite a lot where customers have already had an application and security and a diagnostic license they paid for, and their account's been shut because JLR have gone onto the website, gone onto the social media, and seen things like Landrover tuning, and actually shut their account really nastily and not even return them the money for it. So yeah, I have to be really aware of that one. Time to complete initially 1 day. Security, I'm afraid 3 to 6 weeks. It's a paper process, and you do have to submit all your bits and pieces with them, and it's all very manual. Geographic restrictions, yes. Again, it's a bit of a strange one, this. Certain areas of the world, they'll let you register, but only sell you tech docs, and won't let you actually buy a subscription for using your diagnostic tool. And depending on the area, again, depends on what type of security you get. Logos, yes, we do know of one case with logos so far where they've gone on, they didn't like them, called Land Rover something or other with the Land Rover logo. So they actually ended up taking them to court over it. So you have to be a bit careful of them. Well, here we go. Mercedes. Where do we start with this one?
Well,
oh God,
I think the slide says everything, really. You know, it's certainly a manufacturer that's seen the most changes, I would say, within these last 12 months, due to obviously the issues and problems that we've mentioned and alluded to earlier about a lot of the cracked, copied software. I think probably Mercedes-Benz is as number one on the Chinese list of cracked, copied, redistributed hardware and software. I think everywhere you look on Google or on any web browser, you can type in Mercedes-Benz and you will be inundated with Chinese websites all trying to sell you the Zentry Star or Diagnostics or whatever else they want to call it, the old software that it used to be, DAS, etc. You know, there'll be lots of websites that pop up on there. So it's very easy to make that wrong choice and buy the wrong thing. So we're gonna basically go through some of the things that Mercedes-Benz have introduced really this year to try to clamp down and make things harder, and a lot of the changes that they've put into their software, really to try and weed out all these fake bits of kit. So VAT registration required, absolutely, yeah. Again, critical, as well as being obviously a limited company. You know, really, really, really want to weed out anybody that's not 100% legit. Separate security application? No, there is currently no separate security application. However, there is an additional security to give you what we call Zentry Flash user rights, okay, which does allow for what a lot of people will know as SCN, online coding and programming. Seems to be the big buzzword when we speak to customers. Can I get online SCN activity So again, separate application for Zentree Flash user, but it's not something that's a bought and paid for application. Again, it's just submitting personal information about yourself, personal email address, etc., and you get back a personal identification number. This is what they really, really are looking for to clamp down on. Every single user should have their own user credentials to use the system. So if you have 5, 6, 7 employees in your workshop, you should be having 5, 6, 7 individual user accounts.
Okay, so it's fairly complicated, as we see. So you're going to do a premises check, mobile trading. Yes, they prefer a workshop address. I'm not really going to go into this too much, but we've had a lot of problems with people. For example, we've got a very highly rated locksmith who is part of a big national mobile company. They were very unhappy about that. We had to fight Mercedes for 6 months to get him registered. Emissions and tuning, absolutely huge problem with that. With Mercedes, again, they'll just shut you down. They won't give you it. It's in their T's and C's, as we've said. Time to complete. 6 to 12 weeks, dependent on customer input. We do this all the time. We have a strictly laid out process to do it. We have people literally ringing customers day upon day saying, have you ticked this box? Have you done this? Have you done that? So it really is dependent on the customer. I think we could probably get one through in about 3 weeks as the customer was pressing all the buttons and answering the emails now.
Yeah, if you're dedicated to getting this account up and running quickly and you're prepared to work with us and we're liaising with you on a daily basis, then yes, we can smooth and work this through. However, there is a point within the software that we do have to hold fire on because we're waiting for an approval and a decision from Mercedes-Benz, of which we have no control over.
And this is when they go and check everything about you. And I've put as a bit of a laugh at the bottom, great grandmother's birth certificate and shoe size. That's because Mercedes will literally go through your websites. They'll go through everything. They'll check you out. They'll check your passport, your ID, everything on there. Once you're through, you're through. That's it. So as I put the problem, it's at the bottom. It's so complicated. That is actually the process that we have written down. It's a bit more to it than that because we've got diagrams obviously as well. But as you can see, that would take about 3 slides to get through that. It's a massively complicated process, but we guide you through it. We click the buttons with you. And once you're in and once the portal's done, bang, you're in. Suddenly one day it's completed and off you're running. As I say, probably if you're dedicated and we could work with you, less than 6 weeks. But the problem is everybody's busy. We're trying to get hold of people. Have you got this email? No, I seem to have lost it, blah, blah, blah. So you can imagine it takes us twice as long if our customers aren't willing to help us really with it. Okay, next one, Porche, Dave. Oh dear.
Wow. Yeah. Another one that's very difficult at the moment. Again, Porsche Motor Company. Great bunch of guys down there that are trying to do the best they can with the registrations that are being sent to them. However, we do have several instances of even new starters within Porsche dealerships are also struggling to get accepted at the moment due to some of the restrictions. So again, they seem to have a few internal issues there, and unfortunately, nothing to do with the guys in Porsche UK. This seems to be affected by outside of the UK. So as we've mentioned, and you can see here that the application form is actually provided in German and English. And this has been something that's been ongoing now for a number of years, that they only recognize the German form as a legally binding document. So therefore, you're having to use the English document as a translation document. You have to still complete the German document, as that's the only one they legally recognize as a proper document. So it's been that way since, well, as long as I can remember.
Yeah, 2010 at least.
It's been there for a number of years, and I don't see this changing anytime soon. Again, identity check, yes, that's required. So you'll need to provide evidence of passport, driving license, etc., etc. And again, the premises check is required and done through your SIC number, again, to prove that you're obviously a repairer of motor vehicles. So again, with mobile trading, they obviously prefer that you're a workshop address. But we have had a couple of instances of mobile guys, not too many. But so obviously, as you can see, they will prefer an actual fixed workshop address premises. And again, definitely emissions and tuning a problem. Again, they definitely do not like you having the facility for tuning, remapping, and modification of their ECUs. Typical time to complete an application, yeah, well, again, 6 to 12 weeks, really. That's dependent, again, upon customer input and providing the right documentary evidence and submitted in good working order and working time. There are currently no geographical restrictions in that respect. So, yeah, available out in Europe. And again, the USA have a different site from the European website. Logos, they are very strict on logos. Not only just that, they're even quite strict on the name of the company. So anything that can be related to Porsche in any way, shape or form, whether it be by model derivatives or any kind of names that would suggest Porsche in any way, shape or form, then again, can put a hold upon your application. And even seen applications being rejected due to company names.
Yeah, it's a bit of a bizarre one, Porsche, really, because they've rejected some stuff which you would, and passed some stuff which I thought they would have rejected. So I don't know who makes the decision on that. So I've seen a company called 911 something being rejected, another one called Porsche. Anyway, they're very strange. They just seem to make their minds up on case by case basis on that one. So where do we go with this? Fiat, Alfa, Chrysler, Europe, rest of world. We've been working on this afternoon as we actually do this podcast, this webinar rather. Just before we were having calls with the Fiat group across the world, trying to get this fixed because the tool registration process is currently broken for the aftermarket. They came out with a new portal about a month ago, February 22nd. I've put on there. I think it was. They came out. It kind of works for most of it, but some of it. For registering, what was it, Dave, with Fiat, it just doesn't work properly at the moment.
Yeah, the initial registration process is automatically granted for Chrysler, Jeep and Dodge because they're trying to use a one registration process for the whole of the Fiat Chrysler group, not the Stellantis group, but the Fiat, Chrysler and Alfa. So basically falls under the banner of Fiat, Alfa, Lancia, Chrysler, Jeep and Dodge. So the Chrysler, Jeep and Dodge seems to be the prominent brand application, and the kind of the Fiat, Alfa, Lancia is as a secondary subsidiary. So you need to make a separate application after you've been granted for Chrysler, Jeep and Dodge. So it seems to kind of be led by the USA brand and followed then closely by the European.
So if you don't know what we're on about with Stellantis, so Stellantis basically now is a huge, huge group. So you've got all those brands on top of there, but also PSA group is also part of Stellantis, which now owns Vauxhall as well. So it's an incredibly big group worldwide. And I think that currently the right arm doesn't know what the left arm's doing with them. Now, as I say, as I actually wrote this yesterday, things have now moved on. We've now got better contact with them. And yeah, things are moving on. So whistling through it, you've got to be VAT registered. Surprise, surprise. Limited company, yes, you need to upload your VAT certificate and your limited company registration. Security is included, which is great. Don't seem to be interested at all in security for some reason. And that's, obviously that's going to unlock your secure gateway modules and stuff in there. No identity check, doesn't seem to be. Mobile trading, not a problem. Emissions and tuning, not as yet, which does surprise me, to be fair, because I know they had a number of issues around emissions. So watch this space, as they say with that one. Typical time to complete currently, actually, I think from the information we got back today, it might only be a few days now if we can get the right people to do it and they can change their website. Geographical restrictions, Europe-wide, USA license also available, as Dave's just explained. Logos, they don't seem bothered at all yet. So hopefully, since writing this, we might have cracked this one, but we'll find out tomorrow. Dave, right, this is one of our most common applications. We do this every single day, so we're pretty good at this one.
Yeah, so this is the VAG group. And of course, falling under the VAG group, we have the Volkswagen, Audi, Seat, Skoda, we have Bentley, Lamborghini, Bugatti. There's also a model of MAN that falls under this particular category as well. But in the main, it's a pretty strict but fairly easy process. We've been doing this now for a number of years. Paper application in the main. Again, also with a nice little survey that's attached to it as well, asking you basic questions about who you are, what you want to use it for. Just so they can gather some information on how many users they've got and the type of users that they're getting. So yeah, in the main, what we're talking about at the bottom here is the main core four brands: the Volkswagen, Audi, Seat, and Skoda. Bentley is the same process application, but obviously directly to Bentley. Lamborghini, it's theoretically the same, but in practice, it's very, very difficult. They don't seem to like responding very, very quickly to emails. And again, Bugatti, well, it's one of those things, really. We've never really been asked for Bugatti, but again, we suspect that it's very similar to the Lamborghini in that respect. They don't make the use of the website very easily to find, and certainly the contact details are not easy to locate.
Yeah, and we've got loads of them around here, so we're really bothered about that one. Yeah, loads of them. Yeah. So VAT registration, definitely. They just, yeah, you can't do without it now. It's a real pain. Limited company. It's an interesting one because actually we have got a letter from an accountant, but they asked lots of questions and it took a long time to do it. So it is possible to do without being a limited company. Security application. This is included in the application. This is what we call the Gecko token, which allows you to do security on all of those brands. Incidentally, if you were to get Volkswagen, Audi, Seat, Skoda, this is one Gecko token for all of those brands. Bentley, you'd actually have a separate Gecko token to carry out that. Identity checks, yes, you need a valid passport, basically, or a driving license, blah, 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 blah. Anything sort of ID card, they'll accept that. They can verify your identity with. They do check the premises, check it through the SIC number, and we know for a fact, because we know people who work there, that they do Google the life out of you as well and see whether you've got your logos, blah, blah, blah. Mobile trading, yes, and yeah, they prefer a workshop address, but we do know several people who are using it without a workshop address. They've got a home address as a registered business, and they seem to have got away with it somehow. Whether they're tightened up on that recently, Dave, I don't know.
No evidence for that is that there still are mobile guys that are using the equipment without issues and problems.
That's okay then. Missions and tuning, yes, think Dieselgate. That's what triggered all this off in the first place. So very sensitive about tuning. Typical time to complete 6 to 12 weeks, depending on customer input. Again, what we do as a business is we send you the forms, you fill them in, we check the forms, we check all your identities are right, send it off, and then hopefully Volkswagen just have to tick a few boxes and you get your application back. And then we'll build a kit for you.
In extreme circumstances, we have seen that exceed 12 weeks as well, due to, again, the popularity of the demand for Volkswagen and German brands in the main. There seems to be, again, a lot of phone calls and conversations we have about specializing in particular brands, going forward with dealer tools. And the most common is, I'll become a German car specialist.
Yeah, so it seems to be.
So you can appreciate that the VAG group, as it covers 4 main core brands with 1 application and 1 subscription, it's probably the top of everybody's wish list and tick list. So yeah, they do receive a huge amount of applications on a weekly basis.
Again, look at our previous webinar about this, because actually Volkswagen is a really good tool. You can make a lot of money from Volkswagen, to be fair, and a lot of people do, but you need to be trained and dedicated to use the thing. Okay, logo is very strict. We know that for a fact. We've had people where they've actually been on Google Street View, and they've had to sign up and they've been rejected because they've seen the sign on the building, and they've actually they changed the sign a couple of years before, but Google Street View's not been passed there, so they've had to write to Volkswagen to have another relook at that. Next one. So this again is part of the Stellantis group, but not merged with the Stellantis. So as you know, Vauxhall were bought by PSA. So it's Vauxhall, Opel Europe are bought by PSA, not Opel USA. It's all a bit confusing, this one. But basically, you've got the same system, but 2 systems on the same system. So it's all done through Diagbox, isn't it, Dave, these days? It's all together on there. VAT registration, no, surprisingly, but it is changing. We know they're trying to merge the 2 businesses together. Limited company, no, don't need to be. Security application, this is a bit weird. So there's no security application in PSA, but you need a code generator for what they call CERMI codes. Now, CERMI codes is absolutely, and I've checked this with the EU guys that did the rules, that work on the CERMI committee, and said this is absolutely nothing to do with CERMI, but they call them CERMI codes. Why? We're not entirely sure why. And with Vauxhall, you actually pay as you go. So What we do is we just give people a code generator rather than having to pay €60 odd for a CERMI code. We just give them a code generator. It costs a few euros. They put the code in, and that does use security. So, bit weird. Again, it's PSA. Identity checks required. No, but they used to use a Dun and Bradshaw number up till recently, but this may change again. So we actually do talk to people in PSA and Vauxhall, or the same thing, and they tell us that there are going to be changes. There are things going on, and the whole internal business there's a bit confused at the moment because you've got Vauxhall guys and other bits and pieces. As you can see, I've even put up there about Toyota, because Toyota is actually using a PSA platform as well now.
Yeah, the bigger the Stellantis group is growing, the more need, obviously, and focus now to streamline the business, to make one uniform platform. So you can rest assured changes are going to be happening with the whole of the Stellantis group. So whether that will affect Fiat, Alfa, Chrysler, Jeep, Dodge, Vauxhall, Citroen, Peugeot, DS, you can assure that there'll be somebody somewhere working on something that'll to uniform and stream.
There's going to be one portal basically.
These applications.
Yeah, there's going to be one portal at the end of it, and I'm sure there is eventually. But they've got to pull all these different technologies together, because I mean the software between PSA and Vauxhall is just chalk and cheese, completely and utterly different through the same portal. So we spend a lot of time technically supporting people just to be able to buy the right software in that portal these days. So as you can see, premises check required, no. Mobile trading, not a problem, no. Emission tuning, not so far. Typical time to complete, 48 hours, we'd say, to go through full application. Geographical, not in Europe. USA, the portal's not available, really. I mean, we've never really tried in the US because they don't really sell any Peugeots in the US. So we've not had an issue with that one so far. Logos, not a problem either. But there is a caveat to this, which we'll talk about later, because this all seems too good to be true. And like everything in life, it's too good to be true. That looks too good to be true, it is. So Volvo, Dave, your favourite, he cries every time someone buys a Volvo kit, to be fair.
Yeah, it's a fairly difficult registration process. Can take quite a while to go through, and again, takes quite a bit of understanding with the administration of Volvo and Polestar. So again, with the VAT registration required, yes, it is. You also need to be a limited company as well, yes. Separate security application, well, again, it's included in the application. You will, however, need to form a partnership with a friendly Volvo dealer. We've put a local friendly dealer here. In real terms, it doesn't have to be local because all transactions are done electronically. However, we would strongly suggest that you have a good working relationship with a Volvo dealer. You will need to give them a partner ID, and they will have to pay you. And this is not just to buy programming files, but this is also to buy the software for certain things, even adaptations and relearns. So be prepared for those extra additional costs when it comes to relearns, adaptions, and coding and programming, because Volvo seem to like to do everything by a Volvo parts catalogue and part numbers that you're ordering with the dealer. They are all electronically, so there's nothing physically to send you, but they will need your partner ID to make sure they send it to the right company. So that's obviously something that's quite unique to Volvo. The identity check required, yes, you do need a passport, driving license, etc., or something similar. Premises check required, yes, obviously, again, they'll need your SIC number. They also need, as well as part of the application process, a photograph of your workshop that you need to attach physically when you're going through the application process through the web portal.
It's quite bizarre, this one, isn't it?
Yeah, it's the only one I've seen to date that physically seemed to want an actual picture of your workshop premises, which leads me to believe, obviously, that they really want to focus on you being a workshop rather than a mobile trader. So taking that next step further, mobile trading a problem? Yes, as I've just alluded to, you need to supply a picture of your workshop business. However, we have seen certain mobile guys that have got access. Again, just means you've got to jump through more hoops, more paperwork, more red tape. Again, longer application process.
Obviously, I'm not going to suggest this, but Photoshop could be amazing in this situation. But that's not my suggestion at all. I'm joking. Don't sue me, Volvo, please.
Emissions and tuning a problem again. Yeah, as with most manufacturers, they really want to protect the multi-millions and millions and billions of pounds that they throw into their software development. Typical time to complete, yeah, it's fairly good in that respect. 7 days. So it can be quite tricky. It looks quite daunting, but actually 7 days, yeah, and you've got a resolution and a solution at the end of it. Okay. A couple of things in the web portal that we've seen. Sometimes usernames and passwords that get provided don't always work first time, and the password reset link also doesn't work in the web portal. So there is a need sometimes to contact IT and dealer support help desks to obviously get things moving that little bit quicker.
You think they do that one on purpose?
They probably do that on purpose.
That's been like that for about 10 years. It's never worked properly.
I'm absolutely certain of it. I mean, we've made them aware that their password reset link in the website doesn't work, and that's about
100 times.
And that's not been fixed over probably the last 6 or 7 years. Yeah, so I'm probably sure they're aware of. I think their Volvo technical team just like talking to people.
Quite possibly.
So
it's a great product. Actually, it's very easy to use once it's all set up. Apart from ordering the files, it's great.
And great that Polestar have adopted the same thing, and no additional registrations for Polestar. It's all integrated, which is nice. So just a separate subscription, but the application process is exactly the same tool, same software, same hardware. It's great. Yeah. Well done, Polestar.
So geographical restrictions, it's European. US is different portal again. Logos, they got burnt a few years ago. There's a couple of cases, not naming any names on this one, though. People got very upset and they ended in a big court case over logos. So yeah, absolutely strict. The next bit we're just going to talk about. So running costs of these tools. So you've done your registration, you jumped through the hoops, everything's gone smoothly. You're going to have to pay per hour. So I'm not going to bore you with this. This is a document we provide to our customers who buy our bundles. We give them running costs. The average, I'm just going to put it there, is €12 an hour. Now, what I was saying about PSA is this is just your Peugeot, Citroen, DS branded stuff and the later Vauxhalls. You have to pay per chassis number. It's very, very odd. So you pay €37 per chassis number for 7 days. So this means basically you can't have access to that vehicle until you paid that €37. So if you're just doing an odd bit of this and that, it's quite expensive on PSA.
Unless you need access to the vehicle for the entire week. And in that respect, it works out actually really good value for money.
It does, yeah. So the other ones, so if you're going into say VASS group, you can just about you can't really see it on there very well. You can buy it yearly, monthly, daily, weekly, etc. And for VASS, typically, say it's Audi, it's about €25 a day on that. You'd have to go through all this matrix to understand, because document subscriptions are included with some manufacturers, and some manufacturers, they're separate. Again, different horses for courses with all of them. There's no one fixed rule for any manufacturer. Some tools have fully guided diagnostics with diagrams in there. Some have a completely separate document subscription. So
if you've got any specific brand requirements and you want to know the exact costings for a specific brand, whether that be documentation or whether that be diagnostic subscriptions, we're always here. Our friendly team are always here to answer any of your questions that you've got.
Okay. So just the sort of final thing is, once you've got it, how else do you run a profitable business once everything's gone through and you're all happy with your costs? Well, first of all, you've got to have the right operating platform, really. So PC spec is really, really, really important. We've got hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of tech support customers here, and we're constantly having to update laptops, fix laptops, reinstall them when they crash. You can't go to the traditional route of having partitioned hard drives. It doesn't work with Windows 10 any longer. Windows 11 doesn't work. So it's important you actually spend the money and get the right equipment to work properly in your workshop. Correct PC spec per manufacturer with correct processor. So if you have loads of stuff together, we've talked about this a lot in the past, everything clashes. Or imagine if you have several on one laptop and the laptop dies, or one of them fails to install or runs out of space, you then end up flattening that whole laptop and get rid of all the other manufacturers that were on that laptop. So correct specification is very important these days, and more. We started off doing 10 partitions on 1 terabyte drives. Those days are gone. It's basic one per manufacturer now with the correct specification. Battery voltage, dead important, needs battery support. I think a couple of weeks ago, Dave, Peugeot Put a little box on there.
Yeah, as a update from version 9120 to 9122, we saw a nice addition of battery voltage now listed in the PSA Diagnostic software. So that's really good. Well done, PSA.
So if people don't know what this means, basically, this is not a battery charger. This is a battery support unit. It needs to see about 14.2 volts and up to 100 amps. So, and it needs to see the engine not running. So you're going to have to buy something like a GWS Flash, a Veronis, some kind of battery support unit to do this. Okay, so as I put there, it won't even let you reset a service like these days on some of the stuff. So that's becoming more and more important. Also, the reason Dave mentioned Porche was that people kept bricking modules, as we call it, because the battery voltage was hitting 11 volts halfway through programming, destroying ECU on the vehicle. So
no warning, no notice, and you've killed it.
Next thing, we always recommend this dealer training. Even if you've been working in a dealer and you've gone into, you've become an independent, you're still going to need to get trained, because the dealer systems, you've got to be able to buy credits and do certain bits and pieces and buy separate documents and all this other bits and pieces. So
yeah, you're coming out of that nice, cozy, comfortable bubble that you've been in with the dealerships, where you've had it nice and easy with all of your dealer logins and passwords. You've not had to think about anything. And now all of a sudden you've got to use the same system, but in the aftermarket, which introduces its whole new world of complex buying subscriptions, time credits, what to buy, when to buy, how to buy. So even if you've had all of the dealer training on using the software, there are still a lot of additional steps that you need to go through before you can get to use that software. So please don't overlook the training when it comes to using the dealer software in the aftermarket.
So the continued support and updating services, one of the big things that we do these days is our MHD service, our Maverick Help Desk. And that's really, as I've put there, updates are free. But here's the point. The dealer networks have hundreds of people around the world installing and reinstalling and updating. You don't get that choice. It could take up a serious chunk of time while you should be fixing cars. So this is basically what we offer. And the other point about that is, as the dealers are evolving the software, we, with our customers, explain to them how the software is evolving and what the next thing to do is. Because you can literally wake up in the morning with a piece of OE equipment, open the front page, and guess what? It's entirely different to what it was the day before, because they've added a load of new functions, a load of new features. And we get this all the time. We know JLR are just going through a massive change as we speak onto a cloud-based platform. We're getting hundreds and hundreds of people emailing us about this already. We've put loads of stuff out there about it because we are working with the team who develop it. So yeah, things are changing constantly. So yeah, getting a support service is quite important these days. Big thing as well, internet speed. We've literally had people who have bought kits in the past, not bother to check the speed, even though we've told them, and guess what? They can't work with the kit because everything is going online. So ideally 50 megabits per second, transfer both ways. Invest in decent IT infrastructure such as LAN sockets and network switches. What you're going to find more and more is, with programming, they want you to do it hardwired, as we put out there. Hardwired connections, in the workshop are going to become really, really relevant. The top workshops that we work with all have hardwired stuff on our recommendations now to do serious programming. They'll have a bay in the corner, which has basically got a socket going directly, let's say, to the router or the server or whatever system they've got, straight out into the ether, so they can actually do the programming. And we work with some very, very large clients. They've all had to install different systems in. We work with people like the police forces and people like that. They've had to put separate infrastructures in because their police servers are so locked down that they can't actually update tools. So it's a real big thing of the future, this one. And aftermarket tools, to be fair, we sell a lot of aftermarket tools, and most of them now being updated online. And actually, it goes both ways. So if you're looking at a tool that has access to gateway modules, it actually needs to have a decent internet speed going out, because it needs to have that permission to unlock that gateway module. So it's well worth looking at some decent internet infrastructure just for that alone. Pairing with a mobile phone, this is just an absolute no-no. We used to see this a lot. And then people would say, oh, I've managed to brick an ECU because I had a phone call halfway through trying to program it. Just don't do it. Just don't do it. Mobile routers, different matter. If you've got a mobile 4G router, not a problem at all. but that's a dedicated device, but not using your phone. Please don't, anybody out there. So if this webinar has made you think, contact us and we can help you on your next steps in your journey. So basically, if you look on our website, we've got numbers of dealer tools. And what we say is you can buy a laptop on the internet from eBay. You can buy a tool, I'm sure, from eBay or through whoever else, but you're not going to get the service that you get in a bundle off us. And half of it is the sales support, the OEM registration, and the software installation, live training. So yeah, have a think about that. So thank you for watching, everybody. If you've got any questions, just email us on sales@maverickdiagnostics.com, and you can join us on all the usual platforms. Many thanks. Thanks, Dave.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Again.